Hey guys, Zangetsu 134 here.
And Average Joe Squad.
And we're bringing you another movie vlog. So, we saw Captain Marvel, so I was like, let's make this a trend.
Yeah.
We saw Shazam tonight. So, he probably knows more than me. I'm gonna be upfront with you all. I know enough about Shazam.
I just read the comic book on lunch today.
He just read the new 52, like, origin for Shazam, which is pretty much what they went with here. I figured they would, because Jeff Johns basically created half of the new 52, basically, so that he could make, like, film pilots for, like, most of the new 52.
And Shazam's one was honestly one of the better new 52 runs that I read.
I was surprised. I know most people tell me it wasn't, but, like,
I thought it was good.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but, like, as the guy who read only Batman when it came out, because Scott Snyder is really good, which I would really like for them to actually do something good with his run instead of what they did with the Court of Owls and Gotham. Oh my god.
Yo, Dan Slott's gonna write Dark Knight.
Don't tell me those things. I know, like, he was originally a Fawcett character from a comic company that DC basically ran under the ground because
12-year lawsuit, basically.
Yeah, because basically
because a cop. Have you ever heard the details of that?
I know little bits and pieces. Basically, they thought that Shazam, or as he was originally known, Captain Marvel, was too much like Superman, which, fair.
Well, and this is the funny thing. Like, I actually I watched, I'm gonna be honest, I read the wiki article and I watched a couple of videos on YouTube, as you do. And, basically what happened was, it went to court twice.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, DC lost, because here's why. The Superman newspaper strip, that didn't have a copyright. So the court was like, well, technically you abandoned your copyright. So therefore you guys, you can't win.
Yeah.
DC immediately appealed that, and it went back, and the second time they tried it, basically that court was like, okay, well, technically you licensed it to the newspaper, and so technically it's not your fault that the copyright wasn't on there, so you didn't abandon your copyright. And at this point, this is like a 12-year legal battle that finally Fawcett was just like, this is not worth it.
Like, I know, like, there's a lot of weird legal crap in comic books. Like, for example, like, both DC and Marvel own the rights to the word superhero, like, literally the word superhero. Like, that's why anything else you have to space it to super and hero.
Well, and probably a lot of that also is traced to the comic book scare of the 50s.
Well, I mean, you're not completely wrong. The Comic Book Code Authority, for instance, you weren't allowed to have zombies in comics for a long time.
Yeah. That's
why DC has a zombie-like creature known as Zoomies. Zombies, actually.
The
Zombies.
The infamous Comic Book Authority.
Zombies.
You thought they were being smart.
Well, you weren't. That's like having Grant Morrison write Green Lantern and not expecting to have Green Lantern try to arrest God. I'm not even kidding.
No, you've told me about that, and I'm still a little trying to wrap my head around that one.
Why, DC? Between that and changing Nightwing's name to Rick, which I'm still salty about.
Night Rick. It's like Pickle Rick, but it's Night Rick.
Don't get me started on Rick.
My name's not Rick!
Anyway. So, Shazam.
Yeah, get back to comic here.
But yeah, like, and so, like, he's went through a lot of legal troubles, and for a long time they called him Captain Marvel, but people thought that was too complicated. I think it, like, how they did it was still really complicated because of how the name Shazam works. Like, I don't mind him being called that acronym, but, like, because of that, like it's both his name and what also he says to call down the thunder. So he can't actually say his name to people because then he gets turned back into Billy. So then DC's like, oh, no, he has to mean turning back and forth into Billy to...
Imagine fanfic writers back in the 70s, like that had, like, before internet, when it was just fanzines, everybody out there knew the whole Shazam, like, that he was Captain Marvel at one point. Can you imagine people writing, like, Captain Marvel fanfic of, like, Captain Marvel meets Captain Marvel being Carol?
To be fair, he like, that really, calling him Shazam is a very modern thing. I want to say, like, 90s. was when that started.
Well, I know when DC brought the character back in the 70s, they kind of started doing that, but that was only because the way the title page was drawn. Everybody just kind of got confused, and it was the 70s. Do we need to say any more? Yeah, it's the 70s.
And to be fair, it is hard to do Shazam just because of the fact that he's basically Superman. Like, and I'm not saying that to be rude.
No, it's...
Like, he's bulletproof, he can run really fast, he can fly.
As a kid who had access to comics from the 70s and the 60s, due to my uncle...
Yeah.
No, my first thought when looking at Captain Marvel was like, well, this dude is like a Superman. Is he, like, related to... Like, my first thought is he related to Superman.
Yeah. Heck, he didn't even really have lightning powers until the New 52, where they were like, hey, what... Instead of just having him call the Thunderbolt down by saying his name and holding people above him... Why not he just have lightning manipulation abilities?
Here's the funny thing.
He has a lightning bolt on his chest.
I'll have to go home and see if I can find it. There's actually a Superman family comic that has Captain Marvel in it. Like, I'm not actually... No, I'm almost positive that's what it is. I have to go home and, like, find it. Because it's boxed up somewhere.
And this is just going by how Marvel used to work. Like, I know there used to be, like they were basically offices, and each office was dedicated to a hero or the hero group. Like, I'm sure there's
Spidey, X-Men, etc.
Like, I'm sure that there's, like, a Batman subsection, which probably has more money than any of the other groups in DC, because they're like, we can't have enough of Batman!
Well, it's like Marvel. You know, Spidey arguably has the most money.
Oh, no, that's completely true.
It's probably X-Men is probably a close second.
It used to be X-Men, man. It's probably Avengers now, because X-Men's owned by Fox.
Well, Daredevil was pretty big for a while,
understand, we can't let X-Men have any money. We can't let Fox win. We can't let them win.
Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four office has had the power shut off for 10 years now.
Yeah, basically. It's have one guy come in and be like, so can I get a little money today? No, you just sit in there and write Johnny Storm having sex with Medusa and
think about it like this. It's like they haze the new guy. What do I gotta do to get into the office? You gotta go into the secret haunted office down the hall. It's the Fantastic Four one. And it's just he goes in and it's like, why is it so dark in here? Well, we don't have money to pay the power bill.
It's just the one guy. He's like, they shut off my power.
I don't have heat anymore either.
Could you get me a stack of our old 90s stuff? There's bunches of it. I need to make a fire for the heat. We can't even sell it.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, dude. Are you one of my writers? No, dude. I'm writing Hulk. I'm doing the actual characters. You just.
It's not even Hulk. It's somebody obscure. It's somebody really obscure.
Oh no.
I'm writing the new Star Wars comics.
Oh no, I'm the Howard the Duck guy. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm glad I'm the Howard the Duck guy.
God.
Oh my god. We're going off on it.
Yes. Yeah, I was getting back on top. Okay, so Shazam.
I
said Captain Marvel.
I know.
I just bought the original Fawcett comics. Give me a break.
I only know a little bit. Like, I know about the Wizard Shazam. I know about the Rock of Eternity. I know that he, originally his lightning bolt, he just used that to shoot, a big flashlight beam that would, stun his enemies. He didn't shoot lightning from it. He just literally was like, eh. He's literally using the Flash HM from Pokemon.
No.
One of the worst HMs in the game.
You know what it is? It's the S from the Superman. Which one is it? Is that the second? Is that the second one?
It throws it in Zod. What was this stupid ass? It's just.
I'm sorry. The minute you said that, that's the first thing that popped in my mind, and I was like,
it's less useful than that.
It really is.
To quote Family Guy, that was a minor inconvenience. This isn't even a minor inconvenience. It's literally.
This is stupid. What is that for? But do a whole video on that. What is the S about? Anyway, get back on topic. This is very much New 52 Shazam. As someone who's a little more familiar with
yeah, there goes the light. Oh well.
See, now you're glad I had my phone on.
No, I'm glad you had your phone on.
But anyway, this is certainly a lot more closer to New 52 Shazam than it is original Fawcett comics Shazam / Captain Marvel.
For one, he doesn't live in a subway, and he's not a DJ.
Yeah, because let's be honest, the time period where you could live in a subway, let alone a kid live in a subway, that's long gone at this point.
Not only that, no radio station's gonna hire a 10-year-old
come on. I mean,
that's not gonna fly.
Speaking of which, they have a Captain Marvel poster still hanging up over there.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's still in theaters. I forgot about. But anyway.
But like, you know, it's like how like, you know, like they can't have Betty Brant be the same age as Peter in a Spider-Man movie because no publishing company's gonna let their president have a 16-year-old be his secretary.
Yeah, that. You gotta update some stuff because let's be honest, the era has definitely changed.
Well, for instance, speaking of things that they needed to change, Savannah's not an Asian stereotype like he was back in the Fawcett era.
Yeah, let's talk about how Shazam / Captain Marvel. I might just keep calling it Captain Marvel because it's basically what it is.
I'm sorry. Like a lot.
I'm old fashioned, but
us old guard are just gonna call him Captain Marvel just to annoy people.
But anyway,
especially the hardcore DC fans.
Especially
the
Captain Marvel in the 40s actually is, if you like. I'm trying to think of the way.
I mean, for God's sake,
Captain Marvel is responsible for the Clone Saga, and by that I mean it was the first comic to have a long-running, overarching storyline with everything. Yeah. I think it ran for like 26 issues.
Well, I mean, for God's sakes, this is the same comic that Billy imbued his power into a stuffed tiger and made it a cat and made him known as Tawny Tiger. Which they do a lot of tiger stuff in here. Like Billy has like
it's on his backpack.
Yeah, when he was a little kid, he wanted a stuffed tiger plushie. I want to say there were some other things, and he also like you see that plushie come up a lot. It's a reference to Tawny Tiger, who was a stuffed. Fun fact: the comic Invincible, that character, he had a favorite like dog character, like I forget Science Dog.
Yeah,
his name was Science Dog, and his powers accidentally bring Science Dog to life. And he's like, but you're a cartoon character. He's like, no, but your powers needed to, or no, it was an alien. The alien's like, I chose this form because you couldn't comprehend my form, so I turned into this. And he's just like, my life is really weird.
But yeah, anyway, just to wrap up my point, basically it's the first comic to have a long arching storyline.
Because wasn't it
26 issues?
Wasn't it originally like a newspaper serial, which they just compacted into a like a comic, like how they did like the early Superman stuff?
I'm not too sure without having the.
That's fine. I only know that because like Action
like
Comics #1 is legitimately just a collection of shorts.
Basically,
I mean, keep talking.
Yeah,
but.
DC owns all the rights to this stuff now because they retroactively bought the copyright from Fawcett and stuff. They've come close to re-releasing that 26 run, which is arguably one of the most important comic runs in history.
Because it kind of
they always back down from it. Basically in the same way that Disney doesn't release Song of the South is because racism. There's so much of it in those comics because it was the 40s. It's during World War II. So Captain Nazi is in it.
Oh my god.
Japanese stereotypes everywhere.
Which
I get why DC doesn't, like, they kind of bulk at it.
Yeah, but at the same time,
they kind of need to.
At the same time, they still re-release the Fleischer Superman cartoons where there's one called the Japators. Where he literally he sabotages Japan during the war.
1940 serial Batman, where it opens up with him fighting for like truth, justice, the American way, and then it shows him punching Japanese soldiers. I'm just like, wow, that hasn't aged well at all.
Or the Bugs Bunny cartoon called Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips.
Yeah, there's stuff that is not.
And for the record, just because we're bringing this up, we're not. We're just bringing historical accuracy before you take us out of context.
I have a degree in history. Trust me. This is. You have to talk about this stuff because if you don't talk about this stuff, and eventually down the road, it's just going to happen again.
And to be fair, the only person brave in this whole thing is Warner Brothers because they've released all their war serials, and they even open on their thing saying, what you're going to see, there's going to be some racism and some other stuff.
We're not condoning it.
We're not condoning it, but we can't pretend like it didn't happen.
Because to pretend like it didn't happen would mean that it's basically an insult.
Yeah. And because of its historical importance, we're putting it on here. Like, I love that about Warner Brothers. Like, the fact that they were willing to release all that war.
Warner Brothers, then, to pardon my French, Warner Brothers has balls to do that.
No, they do. They do. Like, Disney don't do that. Like, I think it took Disney forever to re-release a lot of their Disney war shorts.
And I mean, Song of the South, they've never re-released again. I think the only place you can get it modernly, I believe it's up on YouTube.
Yeah.
For now, I'm sure they're gonna. They've tried.
They're not gonna, because like at this point, they're like, what are we gonna own up to the fact that we own this?
Yeah. Well, it's actually been released abroad, I think, in Europe. You can get it imported.
Like the sad part is though, they're willing to hide it. Not so to get rid of Brer Rabbit from Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain is legitimately just the story of Brer Rabbit. I mean, sure, they don't have the Tar Baby from that cartoon, and yes, they have a Tar Baby.
I'm aware, trust me, I'm a history major. I know this. I know this.
And to be fair, I don't really. It's not nearly as problematic as say the crows from Dumbo.
Yeah, that...
like yes, they talk about racial relations during Reconstruction. Released that
on Blu-ray multiple times.
But like, and yes, they do talk about racial relations. But like, I've watched that movie. It's not really as insulting as people make it out to be. The tar baby is like the worst part of that. Like
what,
song.
Are we talking about Song of the South? Like, honestly, as someone who's watched it,
it's
boring.
It's boring. It's just
movie.
Trying to be historically accurate.
Yeah,
it's not like Disney
really
was
boring.
like. It's not like Disney had like people in blackface singing "Oh Mammy." It's just talking about the South after the Reconstruction.
Fun fact, kind of really off topic.
I know.
People from my history honors group, they went to a conference one time. This is like early 2010s.
Yeah.
This college for the entertainment had someone doing blackface. So the people from my school actually got up and left. I'm just like, how that even got that approved, I have no clue.
Like, I get that, like, Disney is, because of the way they are, they can't. Like, to be fair, I don't completely blame it on Disney because they're the happiest place on earth. They're supposed to be like family, family.
This is the happiest place on earth. Don't make me smack you.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I get it. Like, I would really wish that they would, show, like, the war stuff they did, because they did shut down during World War II. Like, they didn't release movies for kids and stuff. They released war serials and stuff to help the troops, because Walt himself was a big patriot. A lot of people act like he was anti-Semitic. He was not.
Now, you want to talk about anti-Semitic, you look up Henry Ford. Henry Ford was the real anti-Semitic of that era.
But my point is, like, you can't just pretend that didn't happen. Like, Marvel has re-released, like, a lot of their early 60s stuff, and a lot of it has Russian Red Scare in it. Like,
what I don't get about this as well is DC has re-released all their wartime stuff.
No, I own Batman's war stuff on. Yeah, we
just saw those at a bookstore not even a couple weeks ago.
They've re-released Superman's newspaper serial in a trade form, which I really do hope that they release Stan Lee's Spider-Man newspaper comics, just because I think it would be important and a good way to. Oh, they have.
Yeah, it's in the Spider-Man newspaper comic serial thing. I
kind of feel like they should redo it.
There's about 7 volumes.
I kind of feel like they should redo it though. Like, do like one big omnibus and honor a Stan, just because that was his baby. Like
they probably could, but like if I'm under the impression, I think every omnibus for that, there's like 6 of them, I believe, 6 or 7. I think they're like 400 pages each. Oh, wow. So trust me, I mean, that would be a big book.
If not, maybe they could just take those and like
get it in Bible.
Like maybe they could put like it in like a big case, and because I just think that'd be nice, just because. They probably could. But, and like they could do like a charity that Stan was fond of, and they could donate the.
Getting back to Cat the Bar.
But getting back to the Shazam. So let's actually talk about the plot. The movie actually, oddly enough, opens on Dr. Savannah's background.
Well, when we actually went in and we were sitting there, and I mean, you and I both.
Oh yeah, no.
It opens up with like a Harry Potter. Yeah,
it's like Christmas time, and you see them driving on the road. I almost wanted to hear.
Yeah, you and I were both sitting there, like, we're looking like, are we in the right theater? Like, I even pulled the ticket out. I'm looking at the ticket under the phone.
I didn't notice until they called him Thad. I think his name is Dr. Thaddeus Savannah.
Yeah, that was when you're like, oh yeah, we're in the right
I'm like, all right.
The DC thing, we should have been like, okay, yeah, we're in the right place.
But like, I'm like, we got into a different Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah, I'm like, was there another DC movie out that we weren't aware of?
We got in there and all of a sudden we realized they were just showing Aquaman. They're like,
I haven't seen that yet either. I would have been all right, this is fine.
Like, that could have been a bad sign. The movie guy's like, this sucks. We still got a copy of Aquaman. We're just gonna run that instead. But so it basically opens where Thaddeus is in the car with his brother and his father, who are both raging douche nozzles.
Pretty much.
Like his father basically like lets the older brother just bully the crap out of him. Especially because, like, he gets mad at him for having a magic 8-ball. He's like, no presents when we're going to the grandparents, even though it's Christmas.
Oh, so it's basically an Xavier and Juggernaut situation.
Oh, it's way worse than
Xavier
it's way worse
and
Juggernaut.
It's the first thing I think of to relate it to.
Like, at least Xavier and Juggernaut had, like, a relationship before, like... Because, like, I want to say, actually, their father was really abusive, and Charles actually was kind of nice to his brother.
Yeah,
and it was more that
I'm far from an X-Men expert,
and I think more like, I mean, he did become kind of a bit of a jerk after their father died and stuff, but like a lot of it has to do with the fact that he was possessed by the gem of Cyttorak and Cyttorak. But anyway, getting back to Shazam, Holy crap, we keep going off on tangents. But
I have ADHD, so that's my fault.
And to be fair, this is kind of, I think, the charm of these vlogs is just
going off on tangents.
If you've watched my Infinity War vlog with Cody and Titus, we gotta
do a podcast, honestly.
Yeah, we should. So basically, like, they pick on him, like the brother like completely picks on him, and his father's like, "Laughing, it's hilarious." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's.
And then
douche canoe.
All of a sudden, strange symbols appear in the 8-ball. And suddenly his brother and father disappear from the car, and ice forms on the car windows, and also like it also does the jump to light speed effect where you see stars and stuff.
They've jumped the plaid.
No, they jumped the light speed. It's like the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. And then he of course gets out and he ends up on the Rock of Eternity, which for those of you who don't know, it's this big rock that's in like an alternate dimension. That's supposedly where all magic began. It
was on Earth at one point, and then after the whole thing that went down in the comics, it's hidden now.
And it's also kind of debatable whether or not that actually is how all of magic comes from in the DC universe, because like Marvel, they don't really pin down how magic works.
Welcome to comics, where the continuity's made up and nothing matters.
Well, no, that's true, but it's especially true with comics and magic, because unless magic is the main thing of your independent comics, like with Doctor Strange, he's supposed to be the Sorcerer Supreme, but like people are like, well, how come he can't like heal people with sickness? Well, that's because magic can only, like, once science is able to catch up to magic loses some power, which I'm like,
yeah, that's just weird.
Or like in DC, where like you have the thing like the anti-life equation, where it's a math problem that can somehow create magic when you solve it.
Yeah, basically, so Savannah, basically, as you know, he's a kid.
Yeah.
He goes up to the wizard, the
wizard Shazam. And also he passes by a jar with a caterpillar in it.
Yeah, which is like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, Mr. Mind's in here at least.
Which, to be fair, I don't think anyone knew that.
Because I told you on the Shazam Reddit, there's a post right now. Yeah. You can go look it up. It says, the caterpillar in Shazam is Loki. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just Mr. Mind. Like, come on, man. Wikipedia this.
I barely know who Mr. Mind is, and I was able to figure.
You could watch a 20-minute Watch Mojo video and know all of this going into this film.
Also, DC doesn't have the Norse pantheon as an important part of them.
Yeah. I'm sure that would go over well. Get Tom to come in and do the voice for that. I'm sure that would have just made people just go.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's not like how in Marvel, like both Marvel and DC have Morgan Le Fay as an important character in both, but
yeah, basically he goes up before the wizard, and the wizard, does
basically
the whole spiel
says,
of, like, I'm getting older. My magic on keeping the 7 deadly sins, imprisoned is
failing.
It's failing because he's getting old, and he's like, I'm trying to find a champion, someone who's totally pure and is deserves to be the champion to hold these sins in prison. And Savannah is not it. I mean, he really is not it.
He does a test where basically he chooses either you choose to
resist the
temptation, or you touch the cosmic cube, as I kept making jokes. Which, look, DC, I'm not saying you're ripping off Marvel, but you didn't notice how that, like, you're basically doing the DC thing where, like, they're going after a shiny MacGuffin. It's like how in Suicide Squad, you had a portal in the sky.
We don't talk about Suicide Squad.
This is important. I get you're not trying to chase Marvel. But come here. You're still doing Marvel things, and people are going to be upset about that.
Let's be honest. I'm just happy there's a good DC. I'm just happy there's good DC movies.
So henceforth, I'm no longer
good movies.
So henceforth, we're no longer. I'm going to call that thing what it was: the Millennium Eye from Yu-Gi-Oh. And that will be important. That's all I could think about after I realized what it was. And so basically, he fails. So the great wizard Shazam knocks him away. And I will admit, I do love the voices of the sins, because they kind of remind me of this fan film I saw, Spawn the Recall. I think I showed you that, Spawn the Recall.
Yeah.
It sounds like the demons when they tempt the kid in that. Like, your power grows weaker, wizard. Soon you will not be able to keep us here. And so the wizard fails, and so he once again casts the spell that basically says, please find me a pure soul. I can't keep them away forever.
And this takes place in 1977, and then it flashes forward to present day.
Which is like 40 years, which I'm like,
Like,
I mean,
holy
man,
crap.
you still did pretty well. But after that, Savannah ends up...
It's looking pretty spry for being ancient, basically.
Yeah, but Savannah ends up back in his... and he freaks out because basically, I guess his mind astro projected or something, or just time stuff. Magic stuff happened.
Magic.
And so he freaks out, and the brothers like tries to take the 8-ball away from him, which...
And basically, you know, the dad's driving, and he's, like, trying to break this up.
Yeah.
Well, and he veers in front of a truck.
Which
almost gets hit.
Yeah, he almost gets hit, which
he spins the car out, basically, in the ice.
And then after that, he chews out the kid because they could have died, which, again, he's Father of the Year material.
Yeah, and then this truck hits him, it flips the car over, the dad gets flung out, and it's revealed later in the movie that in this accident, basically the dad loses anything below the waist, basically.
Yeah,
he can't move.
I was pretty sure he was dead.
Oh, so did I. I was like, man, there ain't no way.
He got thrown and he was a bloody mess. And so the brother and the father both blame him for the accident, which...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but most police will be like, well, you were at the wheel and you decided to, even back in 1974.
But, and a key point is at the very end of the scene, young Savannah looks down at the magic 8-ball, and it says,
find us, which is basically the sins telling him to seek us out. And then
flash forward to present day, we meet Billy.
Billy Batson. I think we do get a flashback into his past where he and his mom were at the carnival.
Yeah, it's like right after.
And I will admit, I kind of like what they did.
It's right before he goes up to the first house.
I kind of like what they did. It's very shiny. The mother is very nice and caring, and she tries to win him a tiger at the fair, but she's not very good at it. So
mommy's not going pro here.
Yeah, and so she basically wins him a little trinket, and
it's like a little compass.
Yeah, a little compass, and she's like, "This way, you'll always be able to find your way." And she ends up losing him in the crowd because he drops the compass and he lets go of her hand. The police find him, and he's like, "Don't worry, we'll find your mom." Cut to 14 years later.
Which this is the thing, and I even mentioned it to him. If this is like, even this is like modern, like in like the last like 10 years,
it would at least be like
they would have called a Code Adam and locked that place down. That would have been
like that would have been when Code Adam was first introduced,
which would have made a little more sense. But I mean, like even like if you're like 06, you're doing that.
Yeah.
No, that place would have been locked down quicker than Fort Knox.
Because it's supposed to be 14. Yeah, I guess it would be 06. And so basically Billy has grown up on the streets. He's in foster homes. He's
in and out. He runs away. Gets caught again. Runs away. He basically I guess tries to fake a thrift pawn shop. He fakes a robbery
robbed at a pawn store. He locks the cops in there.
And he uses the computer code to run a plate.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ingenious.
Which it does show that Billy is very capable. He's street smart. And so he does that, steals the guy's lunch, which I'm like, really, Billy? That's kind of rude. Like, especially because, and to be fair, like, this is much like the New 52, where like they act like he's a street, which is kind of frustrating, is that I technically don't think he's pure of heart when he's doing that kind of thing, but I guess you kind of be like, well, he's trying to find his mom. And sometimes you do bad things when you're a kid and you have to survive.
Yeah.
So, you can't blame him.
A la Terry McGinnis, basically.
A la Terry McGinnis. Well, I mean, to be fair, Terry's is more his,
Jason Todd.
There we go. And so he tries to find his mom, which I will admit this was kind of a funny little joke. But, like, he goes up to the thing. He's like, I think you're my mom. The mom comes out and she's black. She's like, I don't think so. Which I think we see her later when he's
yeah, she's actually the store owner.
Yeah.
Or like works at the store at least.
And so the cop catches up to him and he gets sent to the basically the lady who runs the foster
the foster representative, basically. I don't know the proper term for that.
Who's really rude in my opinion. Like I get
I agreed.
Like, she's like, you keep running away trying to find someone who didn't want to find you. I think it's time you need to expect that she's not coming. Which I'm like...
Like, you don't tell a kid that.
Especially because I'm like, not only that, he constantly runs away because you don't say that to someone who acts like, especially when a kid runs away, it's usually because they feel like they're not wanted.
Yeah,
And, like, no offense, yeah.
Proper representation of the foster care system, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, I'm sure there are people in that are good people and they do want to help these kids.
There's also a lot of corruption in that, just like
I know.
with everything. It's gotten better in recent years. I actually knew people in college that were fosters.
You know, but
there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad.
Yeah,
basically. That's
but
really
like
what it is.
I will admit that really did make me mad at that lady. But I'm sure that was the point. But like I'm like, really?
Yeah. So he basically his only choice is
basically
this foster
boarding house,
home,
more or less.
If anybody's ever seen, I think it's ABC Family, The Fosters. Yeah. That's basically kind of what
where like they have like 5 kids. 5 kids who basically nobody wants. And they bring him in, and we meet. I know there's some other names, but to be honest, the only ones who I remember is their oldest, who is Mary, and the one that basically Billy spends the most time with, Freddy.
And Freddy is a mega Superboy fanboy.
Superman? Excuse you, Connor doesn't exist in this universe.
But I mean, like he's got Batman stuff, he's got Wonder Woman stuff, he's got Superman stuff. You know, he's in the know. He's educated.
Yeah, he's educated. He's educated. Like he also like apparently bought like a bullet that has supposedly been like
shot off of Superman.
He has a replica Batarang, which
comes into play later on.
It's basically a Chekhov's Batarang.
Yeah.
And so I know there's some other ones. There's a little boy who was really obsessed with gaming. I forget their names. I'm sorry.
No, I don't have the comic on me because trust me, they're in the comic.
There's a younger daughter who basically is one of those kids that basically because she's been in the system in and out, she very much has anxiety, and so she constantly talks and constantly tries to keep the family together because she doesn't want to lose it again.
Which is normal.
It's a very normal.
Human psychology right there.
You have one boy who's basically very quiet because he just, I guess, is kind of just like whatever. Like and to be fair, he's found a good home. You got Mary.
Damage has already been done.
Yeah, you got Mary who clearly is an overachiever because she doesn't want people to know that she comes from a foster home, or maybe because she doesn't want to let the family down because she feels she'll get taken away or something.
Again, anxiety.
Yeah, it's a very typical. And I will admit, I love the parents in this because they themselves were foster parents and they decided to just.
They kind of know how it feels, how it works.
Yeah, which I honestly really liked. I thought that was very nice. And again, they showed like there are good people that are in the foster care system that care about kids.
Yeah.
You know, especially because we work in retail and we've seen a lot of the fun about the foster system.
Yeah, so they go to school and there's the scene where there's these 2 kids. I can't remember the last name.
Yeah, who messed with Freddy, who... What exactly is wrong with him? Like he has to use a crutch, and he has like is that exactly what he has?
He's got a spinal. I think it's a spinal degenerative disease.
Probably scoliosis.
Somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong. Again, forgive me.
Yeah.
My prep was Wikipedia, Watch Mojo, and the new 52 Jeff Johns thing, which I read in an hour.
I'm not entirely sure Freddy always had that. I think that's a new 52 thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm not. I'm just saying. I know he probably has some sort of disease.
I think it's the same thing in the Fawcett comics. I'm not sure. I'll have to go home and look it up.
Yeah, I don't know. And so like Freddy gets bullied, which again, like they're picking on this kid with a crutch.
They hit him with a truck, which is like holy crap.
Yeah, no, and then they're like, you got to pay for the dent you caused, and I'm like, meanwhile, there's all these kids.
And this is 2019.
And look, I get
everybody's got a cell phone.
And not only that, look, I get kids are jerks, but come on. Even in like a school in Philadelphia, they're not going to be like, yeah, pick on that crippled kid.
Yeah.
Like, I get that we all, like, as nerds, think high school was really rough and people were crap. It's not as bad as the media makes it out to be. I'm the first to admit,
I got bullied for like 4 or 5 years straight.
And before you tell me
I'll be honest with you, like, is it hurtful? Yeah. Does it affect you long term?
Like, I'm not saying high school ain't crap. I'm not saying high school ain't crap. It's crap.
It's over exaggerated and everything. It's really over exaggerated.
And I know people probably are going to be like, but what about all the school shootings? I'm like, yeah,
that's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue.
We're not getting, but it's a separate issue.
But like, my point is, which I get frustrated in movies where like they make the bullies like psychopaths, like overtly psychopathic.
They make these kids out to be the Joker. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, no, like they run into Freddy. They constantly again harassing a child who has to be on crutches.
Oh, it's actually worse in the New 52 comic. It's actually worse, that scene, because that's like straight out of the comic.
Oh, what, do they pull a knife on him? Or
no,
a gun?
They pin Mary's arms behind her back and like want her to like cry about it. Like, I mean, it's honestly like disturbing.
Yeah, which shows, you know, like Billy, because Billy's very much, I don't care. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna find my mom. I don't really care. He constantly skips school.
Yeah,
but then he sees these guys picking on Freddy,
and so the kid mentions like, "Oh, you're gonna go home and cry to your mom. Oh wait, you don't have one." And at that point, Billy just turns around and just like beats
with Freddy's crutch. He's like, "Oh, sorry," but then again, you guys don't fight fair. Which, I mean, to be fair, bullies don't fight fair. They usually pick on someone who's weaker than them.
And I mean, that basically was the equivalent of a sucker punch, basically.
No, to be fair, I like how Freddy handles it, because he's constantly making jokes and flipping them off, and I'm like, no, because like, if I can't beat you up, I might as well earn my butt kicking.
Yeah,
I might as well make you.
Basically,
yeah.
But I mean, anyway, the bullies turn the tide really quickly, and Billy takes off. He runs into the subway, gets on the train just at the last possible second before the door shuts.
Which I guess is kind of supposed to be implied that that's what makes him worthy to be Shazam. And which I will admit, this was kind of a neat reference again to the 50s, where he runs into the subway, everyone disappears on the subway, and everything freezes over, and the doors open to the cave of the Rock of Eternity, which I love this scene. I think you might have been looking down at your phone when this happened, which is naughty of you.
It's not my fault people text me when I'm in movies. No, I put on Facebook, I'm watching a movie. People, let's text him. I'm like, stop doing that crap. If someone says they're in a movie, don't text them.
But it was such a funny scene. He sees it opens to the Rock of Eternity, and so Billy looks at the
he looks at the station guide
to see what stop he's at. I love that. I almost wanted to be like, I don't think this is 25th and Main.
I think we took a wrong turn.
Oh yeah, he pretty much could have been like, I think we took a left turn. Didn't take the left turn at Albuquerque. I mean, it's Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
but he gets out, which I'm like, why would you get out? Well, but I mean, to be fair, you might as well.
We're missing an important part here. Prior to this, Savannah, it turns out, has been funding research into what the people working on it are. They think it's on mass hysteria.
Yeah, because basically he's
kind of like Mandela effect, mass hysteria crap, and basically he's using this as a front to figure out like how to get back to the
Rock of Eternity.
Yeah, and he finally does, because this one woman has actually filmed what happened before she went in, and she captures the pattern on her alarm clock. And that's all he needs, because he's like, okay, I know what I've done wrong this time. Yeah. So he goes in, he writes it on a door. I mean, he looks like, he also looks like total stalkerish crap.
He also realizes that you have to write it 7 times out of the 7 deadly sins, because it's clearly like, while the spell to locate a chosen one, it's also clearly letting out the power of the sins.
Yeah.
Which also shows how obsessed Savannah is, because not only that, he has pictures of the Rock of Eternity.
He's got a cross-reference map. He's got multiple doors.
He recreated the Hall of the Rock of Eternity with the statues and the chairs for the 7 wizards. Like, he has like
he's basically obsessed with this. But he finally figures it out, and he gets to go in, and
killing the scientist that like she gets like disintegrated.
She's like, do you think this is really real? And hits the door, and it just disintegrates.
To be fair, it shows footage of the door rattling, the lights and the freezing, and the clock. And she's like, a malfunctioning clock does not mean this is real. And I'm like,
typical scientist trope. TV tropes.
Yeah, but come on.
But anyway, he goes in, he meets with the wizard. He's like, you probably don't remember me. And the wizard's like, oh, no,
I remember you.
And he's like, you mentioned that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't pure. And he's like, you're right, I'm not. And he just unleashes all the sins and he takes them all in as like, he basically becomes their champion.
He takes the spear and puts it into his eye, basically becoming Maximilian Pegasus, except he doesn't want to turn an ancient Egyptian death game into a children's playing card game.